Hello everyone, especially Motherland, Fort Salem fans and superfans. What you see in front of you is the Jane Ash channel again, but I have a shot of the Harry Potter Easter eggs involving a Motherland, Fort Salem video on our channel. No doubt that both Motherland, Fort Salem and the Harry Potter franchise are are alike in many ways, like with characters being the chosen one, or with the character being the chosen one, characters learning magic and dealing with xenophobia and hatred. However, what I want to tell you uh, Motherland Fort Salem has some similarities and differences with a cartoon I watched called Steven Universe. Both shows have queer couples that are so close that they can't stand to be apart. For Steven Universe, it's Ruby and Sapphire. For Motherland Fort Salem, it's Rael and Scylla. Both shows have heroic organizations. For Steven Universe, it's the Crystal Gems. For Motherland Fort Salem, it's the U.S. Witch Army. Both shows have evil organizations, with one posing a greater threat than the other. For Steven Universe, the Crystal Gems once battled corrupted gems until they were all bubbled, and later dealt with homeworld gems that are governed by the Great Diamond Authority. For Motherland Fort Salem, the army witches once battled the spree, but set their differences aside when the Camarilla resurfaced to exterminate all witches. In fact, both the big bad organizations are both genocidal in their own way. And when taking down their show's true respective villains, they didn't need to kill anybody. Of course, I may have mentioned that some differences when talking about the similarities, but here's where both shows are truly different. For the queer couples, Ruby and Sapphire in Steven Universe are gem characters, whereas Rael and Scylla in Motherland Fort Salem are human characters. The crystal gems were once homeworld gems who defected and lived in peace on Earth, whereas the U.S. Witch Army made a deal with the U.S. government to protect the world from evil through the Salem Accord. For the lesser evil organizations, the corrupted gems were once gems that were corrupted by the diamonds. While having no moral agency, the crystal gems couldn't let them be scattered all over the world. In the state that they were in, of course. The Spree, on the other hand, were originally witches who fought in the army, but defected to join the Spree, who were said to liberate witches from the army. Not to mention that they're a threat around the world. However, the Spree is not above working with the army in order to stop the Camarilla. For the greater evil organizations, the Great Diamond Authority were planetary genocidal, but redeemed themselves, whereas the Camarilla were genocidal amongst a group of people, which are witches, but most of them were not redeemed. As for taking the enemies out in the climactic battle, Stephen and the Crystal Gems redeemed the diamonds, and they healed the corrupted gems, whereas the witches sung the first song and released a witch bomb, turning everyone into a witch. However, the remaining Camarilla members that are still alive, it's not known if they're good witches or bad witches now. One last difference that both shows have is, for Steven Universe, the original series did end, although I didn't know about it, but but it was franchised as they did a movie and an epilogue series called Steven Universe Future. For Motherland Fort Salem, although I was aware that they were canceling the show, but I refused to believe it. I mean, hence with the campaigns going on to save the show. But the series has yet to be revived or franchised. For the similarities and differences between the characters in both shows. Now, for the queer couples, they get married in their respective shows. In both shows, the majority of characters are female. Among the heroic organizations, there is a male character in both shows that stand out. However, more male characters come into the picture as the two shows progress. Of course, for Steven Universe, one male that stands out is Steven Universe, the titular character himself. And for Motherland Fort Salem, it was a Turin witch named Adil who stands out. In both shows, they have male characters who are widowed prior to the events of the series. In Steven Universe, it was Greg Universe, Steven's father. In Motherland Fort Salem, it was Edwin Collar, Rael's father. Interestingly enough, both their wives had double lives. In both shows, contrary to showing LGBT representation, they would often have a straight couple or two. And characters in both shows would often combine their powers. For the queer couples getting married, Ruby and Sapphire's wedding was about them, not to mention that they fused back into Garnet in Steven Universe, whereas Rael and Scylla shared their wedding day with Abigail and Adil, making it a double wedding in Motherland Fort Salem. Also, we get to hear Ruby and Sapphire's wedding vows, but we don't get to hear Abigail or Adil's vows or Rael and Scylla's vows in Motherland Fort Salem. Right. With both shows having a huge chunk of them being female, the characters are actually female humans in Motherland Fort Salem, whereas the characters are gem characters with no specific genders, but are given female pronouns in Steven Universe. With male characters and organizations in both shows, Steven, a gem human hybrid, is the only male in the Crystal Gems and is also the main character of the show, or one of the main characters. Adil is a Tarim witch, was the only male in the U.S. Army, albeit not by blood. But he often cooperates in the Army nonetheless. It's also worth noting that there are other male characters in Steven Universe, but not part of them are Crystal Gems. Whereas for Motherland Fort Salem, there are many male characters, but some are in the Army. One of them being Gregorio Shellbark. For the widower male characters, while Greg and Edwin are human characters, Greg has been involved with the Crystal Gems occasionally, while Edwin hasn't been too involved with the military due to him being civilian. However, there were instances where he would communicate with his daughter's unit and Scylla. Oh, also worth noting, Greg was actually widowed prior to the events of the series, and for Edwin, Willow was still alive unbeknownst to him at the time, but actually lost her after the events of Irrevocable. For the straight characters and couples in both shows, in Steven Universe, we have one straight couple, which was Stephen and Connie. In Motherland Fort Salem, we have two straight couples, Abigail and Adil, and Gregorio and Tally, only that happened way later in the series. Also worth noting that the hybrid characters, Steven and Rael, are complete opposites in terms of sexuality. Steven is straight, whereas Rael is gay. For combining powers, gems do this through fusion, whereas witches do it with another witch. Examples include where Abigail and Adil combine their powers to stop the Camarilla with their union of Earth and Sky, and when Rael and Abigail combine their powers to stop an attack at Fort Salem. Well, thank you for watching, everyone. If you liked the video, press the thumbs up button and subscribe for more videos. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them in the comments section, and I'll catch you all in my next video.